Okay, this video is going to be about strings and arrays and manipulating the items in them. So we've gotten back to some of the basics, which is good. We're really close to being able to do some pretty interesting things. So by the end of this lecture series, we should be able to get user input and manipulate that input and do interesting things with it, like calculate things. I'll do an example where we have a price for an item and they select how many items they want, and then you calculate the total price plus tax or something like that. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to go to my dev folder and do create a file called stringsandArrays.js. Remember, the touch command just creates a file. Alright, so there's our file. I'll open Atom. Okay, here's our file. It's empty. Okay, so strings have a property on them called length, just like arrays do. So let's test this out. Let's create a variable called myString. Okay. I can do a console.log of myString to see what it contains. This is a real simple program, and we're going to run it after only making a couple lines of code. Okay, you want to continuously test things. When you make small changes, you test it. Every small change you make, you test it. If you go too long, if you do a whole bunch of lines of code and it breaks, it's hard to know what broke. Okay, so we're going to use the Node program, Node.js, to run JavaScript. So the command is node and then the name of the file. Press enter. Okay, there's our string. That's our console.log. Alright, so we can look at this length property. So we'll say myString.length. And we're logging this to the console. So there are 13 characters. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The comma is 6. Space is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and the exclamation point is 13. Okay. So in a string, you can reference the individual characters with an index. And this is similar to how arrays work. So I can say, what is the first character in my string? Okay. Indexes start numbering at 0. So for the first character, you have a 0 in there. So the notation for referencing the characters of a string is left square bracket, then the number of the character you want to see, and right square bracket. Okay, so this should show us the first character of this string. And it's an H. Okay, so we can go through and log several of the characters. The second character is going to be index 1. Remember, because the indexing starts numbering at 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I'm going to comment this one out. And don't forget my semicolons. Okay. So 0 to 12 should be 13 characters. Okay. If we started numbering at 1, it would go all the way to 13. But 0 is the 13th one. Okay, so this is each individual character of our string. Now let's see what happens when we try to log the 13th character. Remember, well, this would actually be the 14th character. Remember, our string only has 13 characters. Undefined. Undefined is a special value in JavaScript. It's commonly used when something doesn't exist. So in code, when you try to reference something that doesn't exist, like the 14th character of a 13-character string, it returns undefined, because that value is undefined. Okay. Okay, we'll add a little space. Okay, we got a little separator here. Now we're going to look at how to get the last character of a string. Okay, let's say you don't know the length of the string. Okay, so we'll have some string variable str. I'm just going to type a bunch of gibberish in here. I have no idea how long that string is, but I'm going to make the last character something recognizable, like a hash, the pound sign. Okay, so I want to log to the console the last character of that string. So technically I know what this is, but if I get user data, like on a website, I don't know how long they've been typing. I don't know how many characters are in the string. So if I wanted to get the last character, I would have to use the length property. So last character, and then the last character index is going to be the length of the string minus 1. Okay, because remember up here, my string, hello world, was 13 characters long. When we did console.log mystring.length, we got 13. The very last character was 12. It's 1 minus its length, because the numbering starts at 0. So the length minus 1 should give us our last character. So string, and to get an individual character by index number, use the square bracket notation. So the name of the variable, square brackets, and inside the square brackets goes a number. That number is string.length minus 1. Okay, this is a JavaScript expression. We've talked about those. So this gets evaluated and results in a number. Then that number is inserted in the square brackets. So when JavaScript reads this, it looks at the innermost expression, string.length minus 1, it calculates that and gets a number. This expression is then replaced by that number. Then you have string and the index reference operator with a number inside. It takes that number and looks in the variable str for the character at that index. So there were 52 characters in this mess, and the last character, sure enough, is the pound sign. So we can test that. Okay, so the last character here should be a capital G. Okay, there were 65 characters in this one. Okay, so one of the important things to remember is the last item in an array or a string can be referenced with the index, the length of the string or array minus 1. Okay, so let's look at an array. It's exactly the same. So we'll do var arr for array, and we'll make an array. Now arrays are created with square brackets. Okay, it's different than these square brackets. A lot of the symbols are reused in JavaScript to mean different things. For example, when you create a function named f, the curly braces represent a code block, and you don't need a semicolon afterwards. However, if I create an object, left and right curlies, that means something else. I'm creating named key value pairs. Okay, and this does require a semicolon after it. Now the function, when you declare a function with the function keyword right away, you do not need a semicolon. However, if you store that function in a variable f, I get rid of the name, then I do need a semicolon, because this is an assignment. Okay, I'm creating a variable f, and I'm assigning it an anonymous function. An anonymous function just means it doesn't have a name. If I put a name in here, that's a named function. Okay. So it's important to know that the different symbols we use in JavaScript sometimes have different meanings depending on the context. Okay. So here we're creating an array. Let's make it an array of fruits. Okay. So we can do console.log the length of the array is arr, and use the dot length property. The length of the array is 4. There are 4 elements in this array: the string apples, the string bananas, cherries, and dates. So let's call this fruits. And we'll change this to say number of fruits. Oops. I changed that variable name. Length, fruits.length. Number of fruits 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, let's find out the last item in the list. We'll do first item and then last item. So in an array or a string, to get the first item, you use square bracket notation and 0. Okay, so fruits, the index notation, which is square brackets, and we want the very first item in the list, and the numbering starts at 0. So this should be apple. Last fruit. Is going to be fruits, square bracket notation, fruits dot length. Now that'll be undefined, so we have to subtract 1 to get the last element. Dates. Okay, so let's get the second to last element. Let's store the length of the array in a variable. Okay, we'll say num fruits equals fruits dot length. Okay, there's 4 elements in our array, so this should be 4. We're storing the number. The data type is a number. We're storing that in num fruits. Okay, so last item index is going to be num fruits minus 1. Second to last index is going to be num fruits minus 2. So the last item, we'll say our fruits array, use square bracket notation to retrieve an individual item. We're referencing an item in the array by its index. So this is last index, which is a number. And here we have fruits, our fruits array, and we're going to get the second to last. This is a number, second to last index. So the last item is dates, and the next to last is cherries. Okay, so it's important that you're able to do these simple math manipulations. So if you want the second item in the array, it's similar except you add 1, right? So if we had a variable that said starting index, and the starting index is always 0, the first item is fruits, square bracket notation, starting index. It's the same as putting a 0 in there, because that's what's stored in that variable. Okay, these both print out apples. That's the first item in this array. The second item is fruits starting index plus 1. Okay, which is the same as just saying 1. Okay, so this is essentially saying the nth item in an array can be accessed using the index n minus 1. Okay, what does that mean? N stands for some index, some number of item in here. This is the first item, so this is the nth item, that's number 1. The second item, n would be 2. The third item, n would be 3. The fourth item, n would be 4. To access that item, you use the index n minus 1. So for the fourth item, the index is 3. So dates, here n is 4. It's the fourth item in our list. The index is just going to be 1 minus that. So the fourth item minus 1 is going to be our item for index. Item for index. Okay, we see that the fourth item is dates. And the fourth item is dates. Okay, so all we're doing here is referencing the items in the list by an index. An index just labels them. It's the address of the location of that item. The address of this item apples is 0 in this array. So the first item is 0. Second item is 1. Okay. It's fairly straightforward once you get the hang of it. It's just n minus 1. Okay, because the numbering starts at 0. Alright, now let's get to something a little bit more interesting. Let's say we have a string that is a name. And it's last name first, okay. I can split this string over a delimiter. These two characters separate the two items of interest. The first item of interest being my last name. The second item of interest is my first name. Okay, so a delimiter is the thing in between, right? So like in a path, you have slash u1 slash class slash cs151. Okay, the items of interest are the directory names. Okay, the delimiter is the slash character. Okay, so strings have a built-in function called split, and it creates an array and splits the string into an array based on a delimiter you provide it. Okay, so say name array is going to be name.split. What are we splitting over? In name, we're splitting over comma and a space. So we'll log the name, and then we'll log name array. We'll put path down here. We'll do that one next. Okay, so here's the original string. We split it into an array, and we see the array items. The first one is the first item. If you remove the delimiter, this is the first item, and then after the delimiter, that is the second item. So we can see this more clearly with path. And let's do our path array. It's going to be path dot split, and we're going to split over the slash character. Now this one's going to be interesting because it starts with a slash. So the very first element of the array will be empty because there's nothing before the first delimiter. There's nothing in here. The second item between delimiters, that's a delimiter, and that is U1. So console.log path array. Okay, so the first item is empty. That's because there is no string character between the beginning of the string and the first instance of a delimiter. Okay. So on both of these we can do console.log type of name array, and then type of path array. So the type of operator should return a string that is the type of data contained in that variable. Okay. Arrays are considered objects by JavaScript. Okay. The main point there is it's not a string. If we do console.log name type of name and console.log type of path, path and name are both strings. String, and then the array is considered an object. Console.log length. Alright, so the array length is 2. There's 2 items in this array. Here the array length is 4. There are 4 items in this array, even though one of those items is just an empty string. Okay, it still counts as an item, even though it's empty. Okay, let's add the string length in here. So this name is a string, and we're going to get the length of that string. And here, string length. Path is a string, and we're going to get the length of that string. Okay, so the length of the original string of path here should be 17. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's 17 characters. This one is 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that's how you reference by index. Okay, so that's the introduction to strings and arrays referencing items by index.